Over the years, more than a few YouTubers have demanded that I explain my exact religious beliefs. Although I did my best to answer them, I've never seriously looked into religious affiliation. But recently, I finally decided it would be a whole lot easier if I could explain my viewpoint in just a few words. So I set out to discover what my official spiritual belief system is. Although I talk about the Bible a lot, I didn't think I qualified as a Christian, but many of you said I did. So my first order of business was to find out exactly what a Christian is defined as. Google's informal definition of the word Christian is having or showing qualities associated with Christians, especially those of decency, kindness, and fairness. This, surprisingly, is the same basic definition in the Oxford Dictionary. But if that's the true definition of what a Christian is, then a lot of people would be Christian without knowing it, and even among people claiming to be Christian, it's an unfortunate fact that not all of them are kind, fair, or even decent. So to put it plainly, the definition for Christian in the Google and Oxford dictionaries is just wrong. Not everyone who is kind, decent, and fair identifies as being Christian, and not everyone who does identify as Christian is kind, decent, or fair. So this definition cannot be correct. Then I decided to look at one of the older American dictionaries. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines Christian as either one who professes belief in the teachings of Jesus Christ or a member of the Church of Christ. So technically, a person can identify as Christian if they profess belief in the teachings of Jesus Christ. But that brings up the next question. What exactly is the belief in the teachings of Jesus Christ? I mean, if you were taking a class in college, let's say a literature class, would you say you were a believer in the teachings of your college professor? Or let's say you were studying a classic book, such as The Catcher in the Rye. Would you say you are a believer in the teachings of Salinger? I wouldn't think so. So it seems a person who reads the Gospels of Jesus is not necessarily a believer in the teachings. There are plenty of people who have read the Bible and consider it invalid. There are also many people who profess to be Christian who have not read the Bible. So it seems reading or even studying the biblical text is not what makes a person a Christian. Instead, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it's those who profess that they believe in the teachings of Jesus who are technically Christian. But again, what does it mean to believe in Jesus' teachings as opposed to just reading or studying the teachings? According to Merriam-Webster, the word believe means to either have a firm religious faith, to accept something as true, genuine, or real, to have a firm conviction, or to hold an opinion. So since we're looking at this word in the context of religion, the first definition is more applicable, to have firm religious faith. Okay, but what is faith? The Merriam-Webster definition of faith is allegiance to a duty or person, belief and trust in and loyalty to God, belief in the traditional doctrines of a religion, or a firm belief in something for which there is no proof. So a Christian, therefore, is defined by the oldest U.S. dictionary as one who professes belief, in other words, faith, allegiance, loyalty, or trust in the teachings of Jesus Christ. So if you profess that you trust in the teachings of Jesus, then you would, by definition, be Christian, according to Merriam-Webster. However, according to dictionary.com, the definition of believe is to have confidence in the truth, existence, or reliability of something, although without absolute proof that one is right in doing so. That seems to be the definition many think applies to all Christians. But what if a person trusts the teachings of Jesus with proof? In other words, what if someone trusts the teachings because they've seen the proof that they are true? Is that so different from trusting in Newtonian physics because you've seen the proof of gravity? It seems to me that religious and scientific communities are more similar than different. The majority of both groups believe or trust in concepts that someone else ultimately figured out for them, and they both conform to sets of laws to varying extents in order to be accepted by their respective communities. So some Christians who by definition trust in the teachings of Jesus do so because they've seen the proof of the validity of those teachings. In the same way, some scientists trust in Newtonian physics because they've seen the validity of it. Throughout history, there have been scientists who discovered new information who were rejected from their communities because they did not adhere to the common beliefs of their peers. In the same way, throughout history, there have been religious scholars who did not adhere to the common beliefs of their peers. So even within seemingly opposite subcultures, it seems humans can be classified into two groups: those who adhere to the common belief structure without question, and those who ask questions and push through the barriers. In other words, regardless of one's religious or non-religious affiliation, they either accept what they're told with blind faith, or they seek the truth without trepidation. These two groups, the truth seekers and the blind conformers, cannot accurately be classified as the religious versus the scientific or Christian versus atheist, because both types of people are members of both categories. Some Christians trust concepts based on valid proof, and some scientists simply conform to pure dogma without any rational thought on their own part. In addition, self-identifying as a person who trusts the teachings of Jesus because you've seen the proof that those teachings are valid is not the same as adhering to a religious belief. According to Merriam-Webster, a person adhering to a religion is called a religionist. A religionist and a Christian can be two very different types of people. One may adhere to the beliefs someone else laid out for them, and the other may trust in something they've seen the proof for. In case you're curious, I personally am not a religionist, but I trust the teachings of Jesus because I've seen the proof of their validity. According to Jesus, there are two basic groups of humans. He referred to them figuratively as the wheat and the tares, or the sheep and the goats. But he did not say the sheep are the Christians and the goats are the atheists or anything even remotely like that. In fact, we know he did not define the two groups by religious affiliation because he said the wheat and the tares will grow together and will not be separated until the harvest. If the sheep represented all the Christians of the world and the goats represented everyone else, then why did Jesus say the goats will be among the sheep? Why did he say, "Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing"? It seems clear that the separation of the sheep and goats, or the wheat and tares, has nothing to do with religion. The word Christian was never used by Jesus. Its first occurrence in the Bible is in the writings of Paul, and according to the Bible, Paul persecuted the early followers of Jesus and was admittedly a Roman Pharisee. Jesus himself said the Pharisees were hypocrites, and many would come after him in the name of Christ and deceive many. Trusting in the teachings of Jesus is not the same as trusting in the teachings of Paul. Yet it was not Jesus but Paul who coined the term Christian. This brings up the first problem with the Merriam-Webster definition of Christian. If one is a follower of Jesus but not Paul, then it seems identifying as Christian would be an oxymoron if Paul is the deceiver that Jesus warned about. Here's the other problem. Although Merriam-Webster established that one who believes in the teachings of Jesus can qualify as Christian, it doesn't mention anything about believing in God. Merriam-Webster's definition of theism is belief in the existence of a god or gods, specifically belief in the existence of one God viewed as the creative source of the human race and the world. I think most people would agree that Christians are theists. So it seems Webster left out a very important element to what being a Christian means. I think it's safe to say most Christians believe in the God of the Bible. But here's where it gets more complicated. There are actually several different Hebrew words for God in the Old Testament, and some of them represent opposing beliefs. If one identifies as Christian, then which God exactly do they believe in? For example, do they believe in the God of Abraham or the Creator in Genesis 1? Most will probably say the God of Abraham is the Creator. However, that's not what the Bible actually says. In Genesis 1, the word for God is Elohim, and in the story of Abraham, it says God's name is Yahweh, but in Exodus 6, we're told Abraham's God was not Yahweh, but El Shaddai. From what I found, there are at least 7 different words translated as God in the Bible, and some have said there are as many as 900. Jesus is associated with Theos, the Greek word for God in the New Testament, and Yahweh is associated with Elyon. I wish this were as simple as some would have us believe, that these are all just names of the same God, but they're not. There are a few problems with that theory. First, Hosea 13 and Revelation 13 are clear that Yahweh acts as the beast, and the Bible tells us the dragon gives power to the beast, and the dragon is another name for the devil. The second problem is that Lucifer has traditionally been believed among Christians to be another name for the devil. The word Lucifer itself means morning star, and Revelation 22 tells us Jesus is the morning star. The Bible says Jesus specifically rejected the devil, so either Lucifer is not the devil, or the Bible's definition of Lucifer is false, or the Bible's Revelation 22:16 is false. Here's another interesting point. The Christian religion contains thousands of different denominations, and apparently one does not even need to believe in the Bible to self-identify as Christian. This is a denomination calculator that I came across in my search. It says start here. Answer yes or no if you agree or disagree with the following statement. The Bible is clear and unambiguous in its message, and everything it says is completely true. Therefore, the Bible is our ultimate authority, and nothing else is equal to its authority. If you answer no, you do not agree, it takes you to the next statement. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? The Bible is completely true, but we need the leaders of the one and only true church that God has appointed to interpret it for us. They are always right in their interpretation. If you answered yes to that, then apparently you are Catholic. But if you answer no, it gives you 2 final options. Consider the next statement. The Bible isn't a reliable source for final authority. Its teachings about how to live for our lives are convoluted by the author's biases and fallenness. If your response to that is, we'll still try to trust what it says about God, even if we can't trust what it says about how to live morally, then you are apparently Methodist or Presbyterian. But if you believe the Bible is not very trustworthy but still inspiring to read, then you are, according to this chart, Episcopalian, Lutheran, or Presbyterian. So apparently, believing in the truth of the Bible isn't even a defining characteristic of Christianity. So if one can technically be Christian but not believe in or even read the Bible, then those who do study the ancient biblical texts don't necessarily have to be Christian. If Paul was the first deceiver Jesus mentioned who came in the name of Christ and coined the term Christian, if the founder of the church, Peter, was Satan, like Jesus said, and the Pope was the second beast in Revelation 13 who caused some of all types to worship the first beast, Yahweh, then according to the Bible, those who worship Yahweh are the ones who worship the beast. It seems all of this can boil down to one of 2 things, whether we choose to seek the truth or conform to dogma. But there's more than one type of dogma. In my search to discover my religious affiliation, the first online test I took told me I am 100% secular humanist. But when I looked into it further, I found they have a manifesto of beliefs that includes the belief that humans are the result of unguided evolution. Even if the theory of evolution is someday vindicated with first-hand evidence of the macroevolution of species, how do they go about proving it was unguided? That sounds like dogma to me. So I took a few more online tests and received varying results, from agnostic to Buddhist and atheist to Baptist, although I think some of those tests may have been rigged. But I don't feel comfortable conforming to any of those categories. Most religions fall into the theist category. Theists believe that God exists, and atheists believe that God does not exist. Agnostics, on the other hand, are willing to admit they cannot prove with certainty if God exists. So it seems both theism and atheism are about belief, and agnosticism is about knowledge. Belief is not always irrational. It can be the result of experience, logical reasoning, or a combination of both. But it seems to me that neither atheists nor religionists are as superior to the other as they might imagine. Both are believing in something for which they don't have empirical evidence, and in some cases they're arrogant about it. A famous agnostic, Bertrand Russell, once said, quote, I think that if I heard a voice from the sky predicting all that was going to happen to me during the next 24 hours, including events that would have seemed highly improbable, and if all these events then produced to happen, I might perhaps be convinced at least of the existence of some superhuman intelligence. I suspect Russell made this statement assuming the events in question could never occur, but I wonder how he would have reacted when faced with similar conditions. Since the internet has become a public arena, many people have been able to prove empirically that dreams can and do predict the future, but the mainstream intellectual community refuses to even look at the evidence. That's not a characteristic of a superior rational society, it's a clear indication of rampant ignorance. Wikipedia defines ignorance as the state of being uninformed, often used to describe individuals who deliberately ignore or disregard important information or facts. I don't want to be part of any group that systematically ignores facts. I know there's more to life than what the five senses can perceive of, but I'm not affiliated with any religion, philosophical movement, or political party. I have no agenda. I reject all forms of dogma and bigotry. I believe in the sanctity of life at the moment of conception, and I know the validity of Jesus' teachings. In short, I'm an independent truth seeker. Jesus said he is the truth, so in the biblical sense, those seeking truth are seeking Jesus. I say this with love and acceptance of you regardless of your affiliation, and I hope you feel the same.